Every time Ducati updates their middleweight motorcycles, riders freak out. From the 848 to the 899, 959, and the V2, it's always the same story. It looks worse, it's not as cool, it's not a real Ducati anymore. But with the new V2S, Ducati may have gone too far. It's cheaper, it's down on power, and it has worse componentry on it. Has Ducati just lost the plot? I picked up this last generation Panigale V2 from my buddy Miguel at Ducati Austin. I'm gonna ride it back to back with the new V2S to figure out if this was Ducati's worst mistake yet, or if people are just being terminally online again. Let's swing a leg over the old bike and reacquaint ourselves with real Supersport DNA.
Man, right off the bat, this motorcycle is a thoroughbred sport bike. This is a proper Italian Supersport experience. The vibrational V-twin, the hot, finicky nature, that exciting Desmo engine. This thing is a ton of fun to ride, but it's got a really tight rider triangle. It's compromised, and I'll be honest, it's a little hard to ride. But boy, all you want to do is get it leaned over on the side of the tire and explore the limits of it, whether you do it kind of stupidly on track or on road. Man, it's a lot of fun. But really, riding it is only half of the experience.
The other half is how incredibly good this motorcycle is to look at. I mean, come on, the single-sided swing arm, the exhaust routing, the lines, the clear clutch cover. The only thing more attractive than an Italian supermodel might just be this Panigale V2. But here's the thing. Ducati made this motorcycle a little too good, too close to the flagship, and too expensive and powerful relative to everything else in the category. Because once Ducati launched the V4,
the L-twin sport bike days were numbered. I mean, it was pretty apparent once Ducati went V4 that that was the right choice. It's been an incredibly winning package in World Superbike, and it continues to be the privateer's bike of choice. And heck, even a Joe Schmo like me can take a V4R out on track and extract some pretty serious lap times with it. The open secret of the big twins were that they were never really going to compete with the four-cylinder bike. I mean, Ducati was given concessions to go from, you know, $1098 to $1199 to $1299, and it was obvious it was never going to work or keep up with the four-cylinder bikes. So Ducati went V4, and, you know, funny enough, Ducati is almost afraid of their own customers like Harley is, because even their V4 product had to have a low, grumbly V-twin idle in order to appease the Ducatistas. Ducati absolutely did not want to make their core customers angry. And it's a real shame, because Ducati's core competency is in building twin-cylinder, go-fast exotica. I mean, this Panigale V2 can trace its lineage and ancestry all the way back to the 748, the 916, going up to the 848, and just all those other motorcycles that made Ducati what they are. But the uncomfortable truth is that over the last 12 years or so, Ducati has slowly but surely been making strides to sort of make their bikes less like a Ducati.
If you're new to motorcycling, you may be surprised to know that Ducatistas have been complaining about new Ducati models since the dawn of time. The argument can be made that the last true Ducati middleweight twin-cylinder sport bike was in fact the 848. With an exposed trellis frame, single-sided swing arm, desmodromic valves, and perhaps most importantly, pre-VW Audi ownership, this was a real deal pasta rocket. Then Ducati shipped the 899, and it no longer had the trellis frame. Then it added more electronics and made it finicky with the 959. Then it added even more tech and features with the V2. Then all hell broke loose, and they took away nearly everything that made a Ducati sport bike special with the new V2S. No single-sided swing arm, no Desmos, no dry clutch, no trellis frame, and less power. Look, I get it. In terms of pure emotion, the Panigale V2 beats the new bike hands down. But there was a broader goal here.
Look, this Panigale V2S is cheaper, but that also makes it more accessible, and it makes it make way more sense in Ducati's lineup. Think about it this way. You need to have something that people aspire to and look up to. And having a 120 horsepower, fully fared bike with a V-twin engine, then in the lineup compared to a 200 plus horsepower V4 motorcycle gives the Ducati client something to look forward to, something to aspire to. In the old Panigale, you may have just stopped there because that bike is pretty darn fast and it's pretty darn racy. There's no getting around it. This bike is just simply a lot easier to ride and live with. It is so simple to use, and that's very different than the old Panigale V2. It means that when you jump to the V4 product, you're going to be excited because it's so different. It's so markedly different than this configuration that you're on. Ducati needs to attract new customers, and yes, they need to continue making go fast Exotica, but I think broadening their portfolio and allowing more people to enter the fold at a slightly lower price point makes a lot of sense. They brought you a motorcycle that's pretty fun, pretty fast, and pretty sporty for the vast majority of riders. But of course, it begs the question, how much slower is this new V2S over the old Panigale V2? Fifth gear roll on from 50 miles an hour up to maybe 80. So here we go. Go.
Here in the studio, I'm going to walk you through the back-to-back differences between these two bikes after I spent the entire morning riding both of them. If we look here on this comprehensive graph that I've developed, the V2's performance, as you can tell, is very high. The ceiling for this motorcycle is extremely high. You can do a lot with it. The bike can do a lot. But the V2S's performance is pretty high as well. It's less than the V2, doesn't have as much top-end power. You can tell it doesn't want to lean a crazy amount like the V2. But the big difference here is the percent that the average rider can access of that performance, as I've demonstrated with these blue bars here. The average rider can't extract as much performance from the V2 as they can from the V2S. You see this gap in the difference between the two of them. For the V2S, the average rider, because it's just so freaking easy to ride, can actually get more out of this machine than they can with the V2. I know a lot of you don't want to hear that, but the average rider only does 1 or 2 track days in their whole life, maybe ever. And for most people, this is the bike you want to pick. So let's talk performance. On road, they're both really similar. Logan and I actually rode both of these machines today. We kind of swapped them back and forth. I would go from the V2S back to the V2. And honestly, in most places, the torque wasn't really noticeable on this motorcycle. It had a little bit more top end, but you had to really squeeze it to get it. And the other thing about it too that people aren't talking about is the V2S is so much lighter. That does make it easier to handle, but it also means it's accelerating better, it's geared better, it's actually super torquey and makes a lot of power down low. But all that being said, they are wildly different to ride. Logan actually said something that I think was quite on the money, that this Panigale V2 is basically just this V2S, but on ultra nightmare difficulty. It's hot, it's hard to ride, and it doesn't really want to do anything other than go super fast. Let's talk about how you should think about both of these machines. The V2S is basically a fully fared naked bike. This is truly a next generation super sport machine. After riding the RS660, the old V2, my Daytona on track, the more confused I am about the V2S. It is an awesome bike. It's super fun to ride and it can do a little bit of everything. But a super sport, it's really not, because you ride this thing and you're like, yeah, this is like hot and cantankerous and just wants to lean over. And it gives you that special emotion and feeling that only a super sport can give you. But the V2S is still a wildly impressive machine. And the big question we set out to answer today, Is it a downgrade? And who should buy what? I don't think you can look at the V2S and say that it's a downgrade. It's just a really different type of motorcycle. Ducati maybe shouldn't have called it a Panigale. Maybe they should have just called it a Super Sport S or something like that. Maybe by calling it a Panigale, it pigeonholed itself. I think for 98% of riders, you're gonna have a better time on the Panigale V2. I know I do, and even as an A-level track day rider, a former club racer, I still kinda wanna ride the Panigale V2S more than the V2. But I'll tell you this, the V2 on track would be sublime. I've had the pleasure of taking one on track before. Riding this on street again reminds me of what a race bike is really supposed to feel like. This thing's just special. It's stiff, it's raw, it's angry, it's raucous, and it's what we want out of a true blue sport bike. But honestly, I wouldn't want to ride it for more than about 50 miles, whereas the Panigale V2S, I would happily take on a weekend trip and have a ton of fun with it. So the big question, which one would I buy? Well, if I was looking for a more road-oriented bike that I could take to a track day maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I would certainly reach for the V2S. But if I was looking for a special track bike that I could take and rip and have a ton of fun with and maybe ride on road a few times per year just to feel like a little bit of a squid, then I would certainly pick the old V2. So those are my findings on the V2S versus the V2. Let me know what you guys think down below. I tried my best to be as thorough as possible in this comparison and as unbiased as possible as well too. If you want to win the Panigale V2S, it is a giveaway bike on yamini.co. Click the links down below to my website. Thank you very much to Miguel who let me borrow this Ducati Panigale V2. Big shout out to Ducati Austin for helping facilitate that as well. And if you want to check out more videos, here's another one where I actually took the Panigale V2S on track and tested it, and you're going to be surprised to find out that it's pretty darn capable. So what are you waiting for? Hit that link. I'm not going anywhere. There's no more scary end cards. I heard your feedback. I'm not going to spook you anymore. Wake up! You're dreaming! Wake up!